And our next speaker, Greg Harrelson, has been selling real estate full-time for over 15 years. He's helped more than 2,000 clients buy and sell their home in the Myrtle Beach area. Greg's team has consistently been ranked the #1 sales team in Myrtle Beach since their inception. He's in the top 1% of all realtors nationwide and is professionally trained by one of the nation's top coaching organizations. This keeps the team 100% focused on the real estate business and allows for consistent market condition updates. Greg and his support staff have developed a comprehensive system to maintain excellent service and client communication. They truly believe this will be your best real estate experience when you work with Greg Harrelson and the Harrelson Group. And we know that this is going to be your best real estate experience on RainCamp today, as we are now joined by Greg Harrelson. Good afternoon, Greg.
How you doing?
I'm doing so well it should be illegal. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. After listening to Ben and taking so many notes, I almost forgot that I was going to be talking to you guys today.
Well, we are looking forward to it. There have been a lot of people out there who they've known Ben and they've heard him before, or they're here because they've known you and they were excited what they heard from Ben. We want to thank you in advance, and I want to turn this over to you right now and say, Greg, help us with converting our database into commissions.
Okay, well, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. And I've had these conversations before, and usually I'm in front of people, and when I'm in front of them, I always ask the question, is there anybody out there that's actually ever prospected? And I'm sure there's plenty of people listening to us today that have prospected or did some sort of lead generating activities, whether it's blogging, whether it's direct mail or email marketing, etc. And if you've ever done any of those lead generating activities, you've probably set some appointments. You've probably talked to people that said, yes, I want to sell, but you've also probably talked to a lot of people that says, no, I don't want to sell, or I'd love to sell if the prices were better. I'll sell sometime in the future. So in other words, if you've ever prospected, you've heard all of those things, and what you probably realize is that you get some yeses, but you get a lot of no's. And that's what we call the numbers game. You see, in prospecting or any lead generating activities, you're going to always get more people to say no than you actually get to say yes. Now, the good thing is if you get a few people to say yes and you convert them to listings or convert them to sales, you can make a lot of money off that. But I think you wanted to talk about how to do things, how to generate some income at very low cost, from a very low cost base scenario. So what I want to introduce today is, let's not talk about the yeses. Let's assume you know how to handle that. Let's talk about the no's, because the real money is in the no's, because there's so many of them. So again, this is called the numbers game. For this short discussion, I'm just going to talk about the people who say no. So let's kick it off and kind of let me share with you from my perspective, how we're going to make money from our databases. Most importantly, how we're going to make money off of all these no's, so turning these no's into commission checks. And we're going to do it through database. So intention of your database is critical. The intention of your database. This will not be my intention, but let me just share with you what most people's intention is for working their database. Their intention is, let me go out and reach as many people as I can, as cheaply as I can, sell them how good I am, and in return, I'll convert the yeses. And that's not my intention. What my intention is I want to reach out to my database, and I want to be looked at as the community's preferred resource. I want to be looked at as the authority for everything in real estate in that my target market. I also have an intention to educate the consumer. And by educating the consumer, I educate the entire market. Of course, I need to share the value that I bring to a relationship. I've got to add value to the people, to my listeners, to the people that are in my database. And the most important thing, or equally important, I should say, is I got to look and sound different. But here's the key. If your intention, if you represented yourself as a preferred resource, as an authority, as an educator, and you added value, those things right there is what makes you look and sound different than your competition. And it's very critical to start off with this is the intention of working a database. Don't have an intention being, I'm just going to go out there and try to make a bunch of commission checks, because it will reek of sales pitches and sliminess, and they will opt out as quickly as they receive that email from you. So those are my intentions. Now I want to jump real quick just to kind of validate, what I'm sharing with you today, and just say, yeah, this stuff really works. Right now it's, I'm personally on track to close, or I've actually personally closed over 180 transactions already this year. And of those 180 transactions plus, over 100 of them now, as of this moment, have actually came to me as a listing call. Somebody called me from my databases and asked me to list their property. So these are not buyer databases. What I'm referring to with me personally is this is my seller databases. Over 180 transactions, 100 of them have been come list me calls, and those are closings. Some of you on this call may know of a guy named Jeff Quinton out of New Jersey. Him and I have been brainstorming on this for years, and I know this year he will close over 50 transactions just from come list me calls. But the fun thing is I've got an agent on my team right now who's only been in the business 5 years, was a manager with Lowe's, never licensed before he got onto my team, who will close 120 transactions this year, with 60 of them coming from his database. So he was with Lowe's, didn't have a database, generated a database over the last 5 years, and now 60 closings will come as come list me calls out of the 120 that he's doing, over 50%. So again, his, or I should add, his marketing budget, by the way, up until 60 days ago, has been zero. He has spent no money except the transmission of emails. So let's just go ahead and kind of get into the process. What I like to call it is understanding the process, or understanding the natural flow of converting databases into commissions. And I have to warn you, this is so simple. It's so simple that a lot of people may even tune it out and say, gosh, that's too simple. He must be leaving something out. And I'm going to tell you and disclose to you right now, I'm not leaving a thing out. Totally transparent, sharing everything with you. Number one, you got to talk to people. Now, I happen to be a prospector, so I'm talking to quite a few people, and as a team, we're talking to approximately 400 people per day as a team. Okay, so we got a lot of people that are saying no to us. But through all those no's, what do? We start taking their email addresses, and that's step number 2. Everybody you talk to, get their email address. Now, again, this is where it seems simple. Of course, Greg, we're going to get their email address, but I've talked to agents every month this year about turning your databases into commission checks, and they have incomplete databases, and a lot of times it's lacking what? It's lacking email addresses. So you've got to get all the email addresses you can. Then, of course, you got to put them into a database. Now, again, Greg, this is simple. Of course, I'm going to put it in a database. No, it's not that simple, because here's what's happening. People are writing these email addresses down every day on a yellow notepad. And they're saying, well, I only got 5 or 6 today, so I'm not going to put it in my database until I got 20 or 30. And you know what happens? They lose that pad of paper, and those databases never get built. Those email addresses never get in there. So you have to talk to people every day, whether it's prospecting like me, or whether you're doing some other marketing like direct mail or blogging and whatnot, however you get in touch with people, and you need to preserve that data and get it into a database immediately. The fourth thing you have to do is, once you have the database, is you have to create 2 educational topics every single month, because my belief is you need to touch your database 2 times per month. Now, what weeks you choose is not important to me, but I do think they need to be in duration of every 2 weeks. So whether it's the first and the middle of the month, or the middle and the end of the month, leave that up to you, but you have to create 2 educational topics that will add value to the listener every single month. The next thing you have to do, of course, is you got to email them that educational content. Here we go. Greg's being so simple. Well, I've trained real estate agents to do this very system, and one thing that I figured out is I will tell them to do it every 2 months, or every 2 times a month, and what ends up happening, they'll do it the first week and then the 3rd week, and then they'll do it the second week of the next month, and then the first week of the next month. In other words, they don't get the frequency on some sort of consistent structure. There's no consistent structure to when emails go out. You have to email it twice per month. It's critical. Now, the next one. This is a warning here. No hard selling. No hard selling. When you reach and touch your database, do not sell them. Do not send things like, hey, this is why you should list with me. You need to educate them in your emails. No hard selling. As a matter of fact, for me personally, I don't do any selling. I make myself available to consult them on any real estate matter or question or challenge they may have, but I'm not actually selling my service. I believe proper database management and generating through databases, the selling is the non-sale. The selling is the non-sale. That's very important. And then you want to prospect these people. See, what's ended up happening is you're turning these people into listeners. These people are receiving your email because you're adding value. They are listening to you. So the best thing to do is start calling them. Take that list of database and have yourself set up on a schedule that every 90 days you're going to actually call this database. Then, of course, they're going to tell you on that phone call whether or not they're ready to sell or whether or not they have somebody that they know that may need to utilize your services. So here's the key. What is it all about? What have I just done? Well, here's what I've done. I've met a stranger through some sort of lead generation strategy. Over time, I turned them into an acquaintance because I educated them, I added value to them, turned them into an acquaintance, and then I continued over time speaking to these acquaintances, and I eventually turned them into advocates. Of course, what we do know is our advocates will do business with us whenever they're ready, but most important, they will actually start to refer all their friends and family members to us. So what we've done, we met strangers, turned them into an acquaintance, turned them into advocates, and built a business. And that's really the natural flow of converting the database into commissions. It is that simple. Now, there's 4 types of databases that you want to start with, and I'll disclose to you that I probably have 100 different databases. But what I keep doing is I keep drilling them down into little segments. So I might have a database of just oceanfront property owners. I might have a database of a specific community. But I want to give you the 4 most critical databases that you have to start with. Number 1 is your centers of influence. Of course, that includes friends, family members, maybe attorneys that you work with, or other vendors, appraisers, inspectors, people that you with, just anybody that you have some sort of communication or connection to at this point. Call them your centers of influence. Now, this is another one of these little asterisks that I say, warning. I have so many people that I'll coach or I'll talk with, in my own office that will say, oh, I've got this great centers of influence database. And then I say, well, let me see it. And that centers of influence happens to just be in their smartphone. It's in their iPhone. They're like, well, gosh, I've got all these people in my iPhone. Got, here they are right here. And then I look and I say, well, yeah, you've got their telephone numbers, but you don't have the email addresses. So what you need to do is you need to look at your centers of influence database right now, and you need to see what information are you missing. And for every single person you do not have an email address, you need to call them. Let them know that you're going to be keeping them up to date as to the changes in the market, and most important, how the changes in their market could impact their investment. So you need their email address in order to make sure that they get those updates. They'll all give it to you. It's just you got to make sure up front that you complete that database. So centers of influence is the number 1. The second database you have to have, I'll use the term SLD, which is, of course, seller lead database. This is going to be anyone who you know that actually owns a piece of real estate in your market. So seller lead database, the title could be misleading. Somebody doesn't have to tell me that they want to sell to be in that database. As a matter of fact, if they tell me they want to sell, then I'm going to go ahead and take the listing. These are people that maybe have said, well, we've thought about it, we're never going to do it, and for whatever reason I could not handle the objection. They turned out to be a no, but I know they're a documented owner of a piece of property in my market. That person, I'm going to gather their information and I'm going to drop them in what I call the seller lead database. Then, of course, third, this is the area, the third database, this is the database that most people have, is a BLD, which is, of course, the buyer lead database. So this is anyone who may have indicated or considered that they may be purchasing a piece of property someday in the future in my marketplace. Now, I want to let you know that just because I'm putting people into the database doesn't mean I stop communicating to them either face-to-face or by phone. If you recall a moment ago, I said call all of these people every 90 days. So we're still calling them and talking to them, but in the meantime, we're touching them 2 additional times with great content every single month. So you got your buyer lead database. Then last but not least, the 4th category is miscellaneous. That's going to be every single person that you can think of that you've come in contact. Maybe you have a mortgage broker that you know and you've kind of struck up conversations with before, that you wouldn't call them a centers of influence, you wouldn't call them a SLD or a BLD, but at the same token, you know that they're in a position of influence. In other words, you know that these are the type of people that if you were an authority in their eyes, that they would have the ability to refer you people. This is going to be my miscellaneous database. I'm just going to kind of throw everybody, wrap everyone into that one that I don't know what specific category they should be in. So those are your 4: centers of influence, SLD, BLD, and miscellaneous. Now, of course, what information do I need for my database? You need all kinds of information. Any information you can get is going to be, is going to be of value. But the main thing is you got to get their name, their address, their telephone number, and their email address. Again, I am one of those guys that keeps everything very simple. Okay, so let's move on to how we build the database. Who should we be talking to? Well, calling expireds. Listen, there's nobody, even the best salespeople that I've ever come across, nobody calls expireds and gets 100% of them to list with them. But if you do call these expireds, the people who say no, who, by the way, we just would get off the phone and say, well, it's a numbers game. I had to go through 5 no's to get to 1 yes. But what do I do with those 4 no's? Get the email information from those 4 people and put them into your SLD. When someone emails you, maybe you sent out a direct mail piece, or maybe you did a blog and you had your email address on there and someone emails you and you can tell that they own a piece of property, but they're non-committable. They're still remaining anonymous beside the email that they gave you. Go ahead. Listen, they're reaching out to you. Reach back out to them. Centers of influence. Adopt a buyer program. Man, this has been a fantastic one. Let me share this one with you. When someone buys a listing that we have listed, another agent, after that closes, I'm going to call the buyer of the listing that I had. I represented the seller. I'm going to call the buyer. And I'm not going to say anything negative about the agent that they used. But what I am going to do is I'm going to say, Mr. Buyer, my name's Greg Harrelson with Century 21, the Harrelson Group down at the beach. I just wanted to let you know that I was the listing agent of the property that you purchased recently. And congratulations, I really think you're making a great purchase and you're just hitting the market at the right time. I also wanted to give you my contact information and just let you know that because I had a relationship with the seller, I got to learn so much about your property. And so many buyers like you, 2 or 3 months down the road, you're going to need to know something like how old the heating and cooling system is. And maybe the agent that you use, maybe they won't know that information. But because I have communications with the seller ongoing, if there's anything you need to know, I can reach out to the original owner of the property and find out. So what is your email address? I'll send you my contact information so I can be a resource for you. And at the same token, I'll continue to keep you abreast of what's going on in the market in case you ever need any help in the future. Everybody that I talk to and use that script on gives me their email address. So what am I doing? I'm putting them in my SLD. And guess what? Those people are going to turn into listings 3, 4, and 5 years from now. So already I'm building a database for listings that I'm going to take 4 and 5 years into the future. So calling expireds or FSBOs, vendor lists, cold calling, all of these ways, all of these are sources of being able to connect with people, gather their email address, offer them a newsletter, and then start to turn them into commissions later on in the future. So cold calling, prospect the community, collect emails, Email them, twice a month, not every month. Email them twice a month. Call them every day. Eventually, in the next 6 months, you'll start to dominate that particular market segment. So the importance of building and working the database. And I know that right now he put up a screen, and I guess I should stop here and just share this. A lot of people ask me, well, Greg, what do you say? It's if you were going to call somebody and they say, no, I don't want to sell, or if I was going to get a direct mail piece, how do you take that conversation from, no, I'm not really interested in doing anything, to, well, yes, here's my email? Well, I just say something, very simple. Mr. Jones, a lot of your neighbors have requested that I keep them up to date of the changes that's taking place in the market and in the economy, and most important, how those changes may be affecting you. We know a lot of times that a small shift in the economy can have a major impact on our real estate investments. So what's your email address? And I'll make sure you get the same updates that the other owners are getting. See, when I use that script, for some reason, people want to give me their email address and they want to get onto my newsletter campaign because they feel if they don't, that everyone else in the neighborhood is going to have an advantage above them. Everyone else in the neighborhood is going to know something, and they're afraid that if they don't know, that they will be at a disadvantage. That's how I'm getting email addresses, and I will say that if I was to talk to 10 no's, probably 7 of them would give me their email address immediately and welcome the newsletter that I'm going to be sending them twice per month. So the importance of building and working our database, think of this. Databases are the second tier of prospecting, or the second tier of lead generation. First tier, or the most important thing that I ever think of when I'm talking to somebody, is setting an appointment and converting a yes into some sort of contract. But I just want you to know the databases, the second tier is when I don't get a yes, I get a no, then what I really get is an email address, and I start pumping them into the number 2 there, if you want to flip the screen or to the next, is databases are the foundation. The way that I look at it, it's the foundation of a long-term business. Here we are again. We're always looking. A lot of realtors are always looking for that short-term. I need a yes because I need a listing, and believe me, I am that guy. But I don't want to lose sight of the value of building long-term relationships and long-term revenues by collecting these databases now. What we're kind of talking about here, in a sense, is dripping on people. Except I focus more on dripping on sellers, potential sellers, than I do on all these buyer databases that everyone seems to kind of focus on more. But some tips that I just want to share with you. Number 1, don't send generic messages. Do not do that. Most drip campaigns are canned messages, and it just turns people off. A generic message to me is sending emails about staging homes. So, of course, it doesn't pass the test of looking different than your competition. You actually look just like your competition. So, therefore, the consumer thinks that it's generic, and when they think or feel like it's generic, they opt out. Number 2 is frequency is critical. You have to be consistent. You can't do it 1 time this month, 2 times next month. It's 2 times every single month, period. Next, stop selling and start educating. Warning, do not sell in your communication. Your job is to educate the consumer. Then, of course, always request that the reader forward the message to a friend or family member that may need the information. Go ahead and kind of at the end of your email say, if you know anyone that might find this information valuable, please go ahead and forward this. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that they may have. Of course, the next one, never remove anyone from your database. If they opt out, unsubscribe, of course. Either it's an automatic removal, or if they email and ask you to remove them, then remove them. But besides that, if you have a buyer that's in your database as a BLD and he buys, then change the category from a buyer lead to a seller lead. But don't take him out of your database. Just make sure that you put him in the proper database. Always follow up with these newsletter calls. I've talked to so many agents who, they'll send their newsletter out, they'll get a call, they'll talk to them 1 time, they'll email them, and they don't do anything. Listen, if these people have been getting your email for the last 6 months to a year, and they've called you, understand no matter what they say on the first call, they're probably a lead that wants to do something. Continue to follow up. Follow up is critical. How do I come up with ideas on what to say? Throughout the month, when you're in your office, listen. Listen to what other agents are talking about. You know, if you just kind of hang out in the office, you'll hear some agents complaining about, well, I had this one buyer and, you know, he's telling me that the market's still going to go down because of the economy. It's not any good. Or I had this one seller. I had these sellers keep telling me they're going to wait until the market improves. They're going to wait until after the holidays. If you'll just listen throughout the month and hear all the chatter, all the conversations that are taking place amongst realtors and amongst the people who you're talking to, you'll get clued in to as to what the concerns or questions of the consumer is. And as you hear certain questions or concerns continue to come up week after week after week, make an assumption that they are nothing but a small sampling of the overall community. So a concern that comes up multiple times in the office is probably a concern that the entire market has. Let that be the topic of discussion. So now you're going out there and you're addressing concerns, offering solutions to the problems the consumer hasn't even told you they have. Well, the website that was on there is the www.c21theharrelsongroup.com. If somebody wants to get an idea of what my newsletter, what the content really looks like, I actually have a staff post my newsletters onto the website. So if you go down there, and there's some instructions right here of where it is, you can actually look at my newsletters and in the archive newsletters and really get an idea of what I'm sending out. So it kind of puts real content to to the conversation that I had today.